More on this story, we can speak to Ariane BOGAIN, a senior lecturer in French and politics at Northumbria University. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Now, in a time of crisis, we have citizens who look to their leaders and how they handle crises. Yesterday, we had Angela Merkel who told Germans up to 70% of them would in fact contract the coronavirus. She was measured but not panicked. How did Macron do?
I think he did very well, actually, because the key was to maintain confidence, to show that the authorities are doing something, that the authorities have a plan. And I felt that he was very statesmanlike, that he was honest, like he says it's only the beginning of the epidemic, that it was very clear. And he used the right words as well. So I felt that it was a good performance, and I've seen on Twitter that quite a lot of opposition parties have recognised that it was a good performance tonight
Okay,
because it was clear
it
without
was
panicking people.
Okay, statesmanlike, and he didn't panic. But at one point, he did mention that he will take measures as he needs to. People were anticipating the president could order a stage 3 lockdown, like we're seeing in Italy. He didn't do that. Why do you think he's delaying enforcing that?
I mean, obviously, like some scientific data behind that, and that's way beyond my capacity to comment on that. From what I understand, even though we're not officially in stage 3, we are very near that stage anyway. So I'm not quite sure. I can't really answer this question because I don't know what the science is behind that.
I understand. Now, we have municipal elections planned for
Yeah.
this weekend. The French president could have scrapped those. He's not scrapping that. Emmanuel Macron saying it's important that the democratic process in this country continues to go on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is a very political decision. First of all, no parties asked for the elections to be cancelled. So for Macron to cancel this election would have added a political crisis to a health crisis. Remember last week we were talking about Article 49.3 and how and the opposition was saying that the government was brutal and authoritarian. To then say, well, we cancel the election would have really added to this feeling of an authoritarian government. And as I said, it would also have led to accusation of using the coronavirus to suppress democracy and, more to the point, to avoid being defeated in local elections, because we know that the results for his party are not going to be that great. So it makes sense politically, but I think the bigger question would be for the second round, because that's next Sunday, and the epidemic might have really increased by then. So the first one is definitely going ahead. It had to, politically speaking. I'm not sure about the second round.
Now, some EU states have decided to close their border with Italy. France does, in fact, share a border with Italy. Tonight, we had Emmanuel Macron who said he would only close the borders if necessary, and in consultation with the European Union, brushing aside those nationalist tendencies which we do tend to see here in France.
Yes, I mean, it was very interesting that at one point he said that one of the biggest pitfall would be to have a nationalist response. And he did say that viruses don't have passport. So, and that's exactly the same message we got in Britain today as well, that they're not going to close like, flight or anything like that. So, yes, it was a dig at the Rassemblement National, and it was also a dig at Trump and his ban on flying.
You did mention in your previous response that, a couple of days ago, 10 days ago, in fact, the government did push through that pension reform using an authoritarian measure of
Yeah.
the French constitution. Will people forget the fact that they did that, considering the way, the government is handling this pandemic now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting question because, right, so in a period of crisis, if you do it badly, you will be punished. You will be pilloried. You would be George Bush with Hurricane Katrina, or the heat wave in 2003 when most French ministers kind of went AWOL. So if you get it wrong, you are punished. But if you get it right, you're not necessarily going to reap the benefits because that's your job. social contract is based on the state preserving the safety of its citizens. So if it does its job, you won't necessarily get a higher popularity. So will people forget what happened with the pension? At the minute, yes, maybe, but not when it's over. So, what I'm trying to say here is that he might get a little spike in popularity, but it doesn't mean that long term people will have forgotten everything that happened during his mandate.
Ariane BOGAIN, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the program
Thank
tonight.
you.